Let's talk about what vitamin D can actually do for something called the cytokine storm. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically the thing that's killing the majority of people who have COVID-19. But realize that it's only going to kill someone if their immune system is malfunctioning. There's a really interesting study. I'll put the link down below. It wasn't peer-reviewed yet, but it was from the Northwestern University, comparing two groups of countries. So what they did is they compared the countries with the highest mortality rate, which means the highest rate of dying from COVID-19, to the countries with the lowest mortality rate, which had the least effect on someone's life. And then they looked at their vitamin D status, and they found a really good correlation between the higher mortality group and the lowest amount of vitamin D versus the lowest mortality rate and the highest amount of vitamin D. But not only that, they found a strong correlation between vitamin D and the cytokine storm. In other words, people that had the most vitamin D did not have the cytokine storm. Now, why is that? Because vitamin D is an immune modulator. It controls the amount of inflammation within the immune system, and it has a lot of other functions as well. But what I want to talk about is the mechanism of this cytokine storm. Now, what is a cytokine? A cytokine is a signaling protein that can do several things. It can increase the number of white blood cells. It can also cause inflammation. It can also suppress inflammation. And it can also stimulate something called angiogenesis, which is basically the growth of new blood vessels. So just as your immune system has many different strategies in fighting off the invaders, like pathogens, these pathogens, like viruses, also have strategies to survive and counter the attacks. So this is my picture of a cytokine storm. And that basically is a situation where you have this hyper-inflammatory reaction going on, creating a lot of damage to the body. Now, there's two parts of the immune system. We have one part, which is the innate, which is more of a general attack. You have certain players or certain white blood cells that do a general attack. It's not very specific. But over here, we have something called the adapted or acquired immune system, which is all about being very specific in their attack. The HIV virus has its strategy of knocking out, called the T helper cell, which is like the quarterback or the general that's orchestrating the entire immune system, recruiting different players, generating different weapons to attack these pathogens. So if HIV can knock this out, then you don't have an immune system. And that's exactly what happens with HIV. In fact, it's called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which basically means you are deficient in your immune system. Now, other viruses will attack the T regulatory cells. And the T regulatory cells are the T suppressor cells that put out the fire of the cytokine storm. One of the jobs is to lower inflammation and prevent autoimmunity, which there's always inflammation. So viruses can destroy this cell. Also, low vitamin D can cause this to not work and allow this to work. So in other words, here you have this imbalance. You don't have the brake pad anymore. It's all accelerator, and you can't turn off this flame. So that creates an overreaction of the immune system. Now, there's another interesting strategy that these viruses and bacteria have, and that is called superantigen. Now, an antigen is a part or piece of a pathogen that your immune system is reacting to that is foreign and creating damage, okay? So it's like a little piece of a pathogen, and of course your immune system, once it sees that thing, it's going to attack it. So what our immune system will do sometimes is take a piece of that to recognize the signature of that pathogen so it knows what to eliminate or attack. So it's really the antigen that's presented to your immune system so your immune system can attack and destroy. But the problem is with a superantigen, it's binding to everything. Now, remember I talked about part of the immune system is non-specific or general? Well, the other system, called the acquired or adaptive, is no longer specific. In other words, these special forces that are trained to kill a very specific thing are now killing everything. So you can imagine you took this high-powered machine gun with a shotgun all together, and you completely annihilated your house by shooting everything, but not necessarily the thief. So the problem with super antigens is the collateral damage that creates within your own immune system. So these antigens are binding to everything, and so everyone has a little red X on their back, and we're getting massive amount of cytokines all over the place. You see, in a normal immune response, you have the antigen that is presented, and then you have the immune attack. We really only activate a very small part of your immune system. We activate between 0.0001 to 0.001% of your T cells. But with the super antigen situation, you're activating 20% of your T cells. In some circumstances, you're activating 100% of them. So you can imagine the massive inflammation from the situation, all coming from a strategy that a virus has. A virus wants to stay alive, so it's going to trick your immune system in certain ways. So what's going to happen with all this inflammation, you're going to develop a rash, a fever. You're potentially no longer going to have a localized infection. It's systemic. It's spread through everything, and it can get very severe to the point where it can put a person in a coma or kill them, as in COVID-19. But realize vitamin D does help suppress cytokines. And also realize that if your immune system is healthy, you don't have to worry about anything. So the message of this video is just to emphasize the importance of vitamin D, not just in suppressing cytokines, but literally saving someone's life. And I am shocked to find out that no one's really talking about vitamin D in the news with COVID-19. If you found that quite interesting, you want more information about vitamin D, I put up several videos that you should probably check out.